folks, I've got an extremely good project that I'm going to review, which is Godsmack's The Other Side. So, with this project, it's an acoustic EP, and it came out in the 3 years that Godsmack took off between Faceless and then Godsmack 4 in 2006. So, when I think it's actually been a couple years since I've even reviewed Godsmack, but I was kind of running out of things that I wanted to do just because some of the hits on their later albums I did buy the Oracle, but it just didn't quite catch me as much as their early works did. And a lot of folks nowadays just plain say, a lot of folks just plain nowadays say that Godsmack's first album is their best, and I was always kind of wondering, well, what's their second best album? For a while there, I thought it was Godsmack 4, and then I thought it was Faceless because of songs like I Stand Alone and uh, the first single off that project, which I don't remember. I guess I could look it up. Straight Out of Line, that's what it was. And but then the second album was pretty big also, so I just kind of I was kind of in between as far as which one I thought would be the second best, because the first album really is good. I mean, it had just plain good feel to it. The rest of the album cuts really worked out, and I remember giving like Faceless a 10 a couple of years ago, but I definitely feel like this is probably their second best one. I think Godsmack 1 is probably one of their best, but this other side, even though it's acoustic and it doesn't have like the shredding riffs that they're known for, I feel like this one might as well be like the second best thing that they've done. And that's saying something out of like 7 or 8 albums now, something like that. So yeah, it's pretty sharp. So obviously I will talk about the singles. Running Blind, I mean, a lot of these just have a real brooding feeling to them. I mean, it's acoustic, but it's not really pleasant, bubblegum, butterflies, acoustic type stuff. I mean, it really, Everlast was pretty good at this stuff, but Godsmack just took this style and almost adopted it, and it really feels very suitable for radio and just a this completely ominous feel the whole way through. So that was like the main thing there. Running Blind had that. That actually was a charting song. It's the first single off this project. I mean, most of the time EPs don't get past the first single, but the fact that this one did so well, it led to Touche, which Touche was one of the few songs off the project that I didn't like. When I said like the bubblegum type, just more happier and seemingly more exuberant, acoustic stuff. I mean, that's kind of what this one came off as. But I mean, really, with Godsmack's style, the way that they kind of usually go for post grunge or just depressing, contemplating metal, I mean, it works, but it doesn't work in the taste that I like them for. So it's up to you whether or not you like that, but I didn't really appreciate it. But then the third new song, it wasn't a single, but it was the third new song on here, which was Voices. So that was, I mean, that's another one that really had, I mean, just the feel to it. The thing about this album is it has good feel. And that's the thing. It's not, I mean, the way they do acoustic, some people you think that maybe they wouldn't be able to do it, but it handled it pretty damn well. And that's the thing. The singing works, the hooks are good, the melodies are good. I mean, it really, it's exciting listening to some of this stuff because you find yourself just kind of going along with it. So that was what I thought of Voices. So most of the new songs were to my liking, but I mean, Soli Erna's vocals were just good most of the way through. So, but then I want to talk about the other 4 songs, which were 2 were from Faceless and 2 were from Awake. So Asleep, and I think, well, maybe Keep Away was from the first album. I'm trying to think. Well, it actually might have been Keep Away might have been from the first album. Spiral is from Awake, and Asleep was from Awake. So Asleep has the best riff on this whole project. That's the thing. That's just completely most darkest, complete sleepy, dreary type feel to it. Just works extremely well. It's the antonym to awake, which they just call it asleep, but it's the acoustic of awake. That one's really sharp. Um, Spiral is pretty close. That one kind of reminded me of Voodoo, just the way that that song worked out. Even though it was off of the song Spiral, it sounds similar to Voodoo, and it does. I mean, it's a good trip. And then Realign is just the acoustic version of that song, which surprisingly works well. I mean, it comes off as like a real kind of creepy song, just paying attention to that. I mean, the first one sounded like summer music, but I suppose the Realign sounds more like a dreary kind of autumn day or something. It just feels so lackadaisical that it's surprising that they could do that, which is fun. You know, that's the thing. I mean, the reason why I didn't review this project like a few years ago is just because I didn't really think that I would like acoustic, but I'm glad that I was proven wrong. It took me a little while to get used to it. I bought Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains, and I was kind of half and half with that. I mean, they didn't do acoustic versions of their old songs, but the way it was just trying to listen to those riffs. But I mean, most of the time, acoustic can be just as chilling as like something else. But I'm glad that Godsmack can do it. I mean, that's the thing. Now, obviously, just depending if you don't like their style, I mean, there's just other types of acoustic, but I really didn't have problems with it. And then of course the last song is Keep Away, which that one wasn't too much better. It was about the same as the Keep Away song on the Godsmack album. So, but yeah, I mean, this is a nightmare of an album, which is kick ass. That's the thing about it. I used to think Awake was a really good project, really dope project, just because of the way that they handled that. I don't remember it as much, but I think that this one's up there. So it might as well be like the second best project, minus Godsmack 1. And I do like Godsmack 4. I don't know why folks don't like that as much. Most of the time they would say that the first 3 albums are the best ones, but I really didn't have too many problems with number 4. I feel like this one's actually better than that. I mean, it's pretty short, but the songs just have such a creepy feel to them. You have to, I mean, it's very groovy, very infectious. It's nice. So I give it like an 8.5. I'm just gonna give it an 8.5. I almost want to give it a 9, but I'll just give it an 8.5. I would almost say that, just depending upon that, I mean, it's dirt cheap. For those who haven't picked it up yet, just go ahead and mess with it. You'll probably be enthused about it. If not, I mean, give it a few listens. It'll grow on you. So the social score, I'll give like a high score also, probably like an 8 also, just because it had 2 singles. Most of the time EPs do not have that, but Running Blind is fantastic, and Touche charted pretty high also, so both of which, if you like one or the other or both, I mean, it's reason enough to spend the $6 or $7 nowadays to get that. I mean, if you've already owned it, I mean, still worth pulling off the shelf and revisiting. And I would have liked to have seen one of the older songs like Realign, have that be on the radio. I think it could have had a third single. I'm just unaware if they did like music videos for it or something like that. But yeah, so hot little project, worth the money. Huh.